And joining us right now is South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for spending the time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So let's talk about this. I mean, what are the implications for leaking classified information? I mean, for example, everybody knows the conversation that General Michael Flynn had. That was given to the Washington Post. What are the implications here?
Well, the most serious implication is that some of my colleagues on Capitol Hill are going to be very reluctant to reauthorize these surveillance programs, which Director Comey and others have described as critical, vital, and indispensable to our national security. And what I went through Director Comey with yesterday was this is an agreement between the American people and government. We're going to use these programs, but we're going to safeguard the identity of U.S. persons. And when part of that agreement is broken, then it makes members of Congress think, well, why don't we just scuttle the whole thing?
Well, why do you think there is so much leaking going on right now, Congressman? I mean, can you identify the reason that this is happening? There's obviously people in the intelligence area that are undermining this administration.
Well, there are myriad motives, but there are a couple we can eliminate. It's not to further a criminal investigation because the criminal investigators already have the information. It's not to further a national security or intelligence-related investigation because they already have the information. It could be to embarrass this administration. It could be to curry favor with a reporter. I don't know the motive. I just know that if you do not enforce the law, then people are not going to take it seriously, and it is a 10-year felony to disseminate classified information, and I can't remember the last person prosecuted for it.
Wow, it's pretty incredible. What did we learn from Jim Comey yesterday, Congressman?
I think your viewers learned that he acknowledged there's an investigation into Russia's attempts to interfere with and influence our election. What we also learned is he is willing to confirm the existence of that investigation, but he's not willing to confirm the existence of an investigation into the leak. It's really hard to have public hearings on House intel, and politics and serious investigations don't mix. So I think your viewers may have learned some things yesterday, but most members of House Intel already knew what we heard yesterday.
Right, and you're a member of that committee, which of course is the reason that we're talking to you today. And we've already heard from a number of colleagues of yours in Washington who have said there is no connection or no evidence of any collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians about the election, and yet Jim Comey didn't say that yesterday.
He did not. There were some quotes of former Director Clapper. In Director Comey's defense, he's not supposed to prejudge the outcome of an investigation until it's over, which is why it's really dicey to publicly discuss matters like this. And I don't want to be too critical of him because he's in a really, really tough spot. Politics and criminal investigations or quasi-criminal investigations do not work well together. And Maria, if you will think about all the other investigations going on in America today, the grand juries and the police officers investigating people, none of that is done publicly. And there's a reason for that. So when you try to mix politics and serious investigations, usually the politics wins.
A lot of people are questioning why Jim Comey is still in that job.
He's got a 10-year gig, and he serves almost at the pleasure of the president. But we give the head of the FBI a 10-year contract so he or she can have the objectivity necessary. And I've had plenty of differences with Director Comey in the past. Not only do I like him personally, I think he's got an incredibly difficult job. And if not him, I don't know who could navigate this thicket any better than he does. That doesn't mean I agree with the conclusions he reaches, but it's a really tough job even without the public hearings. And when you have politicians asking you questions that they should know you cannot answer, it makes you come across as appearing evasive. I didn't view him that way because I knew he couldn't answer most of the questions asked yesterday.
Sure. Yeah. You also grilled Director Comey over whether he can assure the American people that the FBI will investigate the leaking of the classified information. So what kind of actions do you want to see out of the FBI in that regard?
I want them to find the universe of people that had access to a masked U.S. citizen's name. And I want them to go interview those people under penalty of false statement and begin to narrow down the universe One of those articles, Maria, said 9 current or former senior government officials. That's 9. 9 different people were talking to the media about something that is a felony to discuss or to publish. So the universe, you're not in the group of people that would have had that information. I'm not in the group of people, so I just saved him 2 interviews. Out of the 320 million people in our country, there aren't that many that would have had access to the information. So narrow the universe, go interview the people. Phone records are helpful, email records are helpful, the same way you investigate any other crime. But you got to want to do it, and you got to view it seriously. He said he viewed it seriously. We'll see.
Yeah, and you know, it's also interesting to hear the conversation around the wiretap potential, surveilling potential. Are we parsing words here? I mean, obviously, you know, Michael Flynn's conversation was surveilled or wiretapped or whatever you want to call it, because we know exactly what went on in that phone call. But the committees are basically saying no evidence of any wiretapping by President Obama, but.
Well, President Obama does not have the authority or the means to wiretap anyone.
But what about surveillance? I mean, could that have been happening? Is that what the president was referring to, you think?
Among my many limitations in life, being able to tell you what other people are thinking is probably at the top of the list. I will say this. There are surveillance programs that are necessary for our national security. And from time to time, you may have the target of surveillance who happens to talk to a non-target, but that information is collected. That's where the agreement between government and the citizenry comes into play. Government has agreed to safeguard that information. So I don't think most of your viewers are upset that the information may exist somewhere in a vault. What upsets them is the fact that it's now on the front page of the New York Times and Washington Post. That's what needs to be found out.
Congressman, before you go, I got to ask you about this investigation around the IT specialists, those 3 brothers that were fired because they accessed people's information unauthorized. They were making $165,000 a year, 3 times what an IT staffer makes. What's going on with that investigation?
You know, Maria, you just told me more about that investigation than I knew before I put the microphone on this morning. I am not familiar with that investigation. I can become familiar with it, but I'm not familiar with it, and I don't want to guess and dance.
Congressman, it's really great to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate it. Trey Gowdy joining us there.